Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Omar Fareed Khan podcast. Today I'm joined by my friend Jad. Jad, thanks so much for being here.
Hello, I'm Jad.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you,
Mm,
uh, I was telling you like, hey, this is cool. Like I'm gonna remember this. It's one of those memory
mm.
things. And this
It
is
was a good
like,
conversation.
yeah, it's like this is that moment
Hmm
that will become the story of when I tell people, oh, that's how I met Jad. It
hmm
was in the heat of all that, which is
Yeah,
so cool.
it was like a moment. It was like a lot going on at that moment. It was cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you remember?
I loved that week actually. That week was just such a beautiful week because I
Definitely.
felt, I don't know, I think everybody yearns to be a part of something greater than themselves. And
hmm
that like pre-encampment thing, that kind of felt like it.
hmm
That felt
Definitely.
like, wow, I'm a part of something
Yeah.
bigger than myself.
hmm And it was it was so beautiful. Everything was just like, there was just I don't know, everyone was in their own little space. Everyone was in their own group. Like it really felt at home being there. Even the people that I didn't know, like you, I would just like walked up to people and just started up conversations and it just worked out because everyone's on the same wavelength about, the most important issue in the world. It just felt natural.
Yeah,
hmm
you're right. Are there times where you get nervous of walking up to someone and talking to them?
Uh, yeah, definitely. But I just try to ignore
You
it.
just try to ignore it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all you can do.
Because as soon as you start like that first three like sentences, like it starts rolling and you're good.
Yeah, that is
Mm,
true. Yeah, man. Um, that's especially why I love like the natural organic stuff because it
mm,
just kind of happens, you
mm,
know? There's no like script running. Kind of like
mm,
this podcast. Like there's no script running. It's just natural, free
mm.
flowing type of a thing.
And you it seems like you just like at the end we you figure out the topic that you talk about and you make it the title. Is that what happens?
Something like that. I think like there's different people where I have like an idea about what we're gonna talk about,
Mm,
but
mm,
it's not like I script it out or anything. It's just like, oh, and it kind of ends up becoming what it becomes. Or sometimes it just takes a turn that I wasn't expecting, and
mm,
that's what it becomes.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Is
Yeah.
there anywhere that you're thinking this conversation might go to?
Well, a couple places. The first thing that I was thinking about was, have you ever lost faith in yourself? And if you have, how have you circumvented them?
Faith in myself? What do you mean?
Like, I guess a sort of confidence. Like, oh, yes, I can do it, type of a thing.
Mm, Not gonna lie, not really. I don't think so. I feel like I'm pretty confident in myself and I'm really happy with the person that I am, not saying like I know my weaknesses and trying to work on those weaknesses and but I'm just really happy with the place I am in life right now.
Oh, I
Mm,
like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I saw this movie a couple months ago, Dungeons
Mm.
and Dragons, and I love that film. It's so
Oh.
funny. It's just like a family film.
Mm,
And my favorite thing about that movie is the main character, played by Chris Pine.
mm,
He never loses his optimism. He never
mm,
loses his confidence.
mm,
There's a moment in the climax where everybody's kind of ganging up on him and like, hey, you
mm,
suck. This is not going to work. I'm
mm,
tired of this.
mm,
But he's tested, but he still keeps his cool. He's still
mm,
confident and
mm,
he's still optimistic. He's like, no, like, we will find a way. We'll do this. I'm sure of it. And the reason I love that so much is because personally, I'd never been exposed to a character like that in art
mm,
where they just remain optimistic, they remain upbeat or cheerful. Because it's like as if almost every other character I've encountered in some form of art, they might be like in an upwards trajectory and then they'll
mm,
hit rock bottom and
mm.
then they'll be like, okay, like I'm gonna get back up. And then in the end, they
Mm.
get back up and they like overcome, which
I
is cool.
see.
That's a human
Mhm.
thing. But
Uh-huh.
that film, what it did for me was it exemplified that it's actually possible to just keep
Mm,
going, even when times are tough, even when the
mm,
pressure's there. You don't
Mhm.
have to lose that confidence or that faith in
For
yourself.
for me, I feel like my mind state is usually in a positive place. My last name means happy in Arabic. My last name is Mabsout. Um, um, but if you can learn to just control the headspace that you're in and stay optimistic about things, even when things are going bad, like, 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 there's really bad times, but if you could just think forward and continue pressing on and actually work out the problem, my mom told me like don't feel bad because she was saying that she tells herself that as long as I'm working on the issue, I'm good. It'll be fine. So I've been trying to work on that or like use that kind of mindset.
Yeah, that is
Mhm.
very cool of you to mention because I remember you telling me that your dad was the one that
Mhm.
designed Click, which is so cool,
Absolutely.
and other like really cool mushrooms in Houston. I think that's an amazing thing.
Mhm.
And when it comes to stuff like that, work like that,
Mhm.
that not only takes a vision, but it takes time. You have
Mhm.
to have like a far-sighted vision to do something like
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
so, what do you think about having goals or like working on a problem that inevitably will take time to solve? And you just have to hold on to patience in doing that.
Well, you just got to take it one step at a time. Like, I'm a design major and each of our projects takes like two months. Like per semester, we have two projects usually. So, you got to think ahead and at the beginning of the design process, you got to like think forward and you're doing your sketches, but you're thinking of like the material my product is going to use, like if I'm going to be using metal, you got to think of how the metal process is what's called like how you're going to shape the metal in the future, and you can't like design something that is impossible to make in the first step of the process. So I don't know if that's what you were going with that, but I feel like that's what I understood from that.
I noticed you had a PSP there. Um, how long have you had that thing? That's kind of ancient, eh? Oh my God.
This is it's actually pretty recent that I got this. I got this like
Really?
2 months ago.
Wow. I've never had a
But
PSP. I had a PS Vita, but it's
really,
cool that you have one of those. Yeah.
dude, this has been really good for me, honestly, because all the new games, all the new video games, all have all those microtransactions, and they're just meant to keep you addicted. But the games on this thing are kind of mid in the best way possible. Oh, and a good thing about this is that you could pause the game whenever you want. Like you can just turn off the console and it just pauses the whole thing. So if my mom calls me or something, or like there's something I need to attend to like immediately, this is the best possible thing for that, you know.
Wow. What game have you been playing these days?
Gran Turismo, it's a nice racing game.
I've heard of that one.
Hmm.
Have you ever played Prince of Persia? I know it exists on the
No,
PSP.
Burns of Persia.
Prince of Persia.
Oh, is it the 2D one where you run sideways?
That's like an old-fashioned one, but there was like in the early 2000s they have like a it's not 2D.
Mm, I see.
Yeah. Is there
Um,
one game in particular that
mhm.
you feel like has influenced you a lot?
um, Grand Theft Auto.
Which one?
5.
Five.
I feel like I grew up with that game, and it hasn't like shaped my personality or anything, but it just like it's always been like a nice little escape as I was growing up. It's been nice. And Minecraft.
Grand Theft Auto 5 never gets old. I always find myself like every once in a while coming back to it.
Really?
Yeah.
What's
But I
your
have
favorite car?
noticed what's my what?
Favorite car in the game?
Um I don't really have one, to be honest with you. I
Hmm,
just go in and yeah.
mess
Do you
around.
have a favorite car in that game?
The Zentorno.
Mm,
That's
that's
the
cool.
It's one of the first ones that was added. So when I first got the game, I was like, "Oh, this car is cool." And then now, like 9 years down the line, it's still my go-to car because it handles so well and it looks really cool.
Mm.
Mm.
I remember like a lot of people they kind of like look down on video games. Like, man, that's kind of childish. Like, why are you into that? And I can see their point sometimes,
Hmm.
but I'm so grateful that I grew up playing video games because they
Hmm.
have taught me so many things that I really feel like I would not have learned otherwise if it wasn't for that game. And a lot of
Hmm.
that comes from like the story, the writing, the characters and all that.
Yeah.
And I feel similarly about like certain kinds of films too, like superhero movies.
Mm.
Um, I enjoy like looking into that stuff and like
Mm.
figuring out the symbolism behind those things. And some people might perceive that as like childish, but I'm like, no, it's deep. It gets deep.
It
It
could be.
might on the surface level seem like,
Mm.
oh man, people are flying and things are just
Mhm.
going up in space, but there's like another layer. It's the storytelling. That's the layer
And
of it.
maybe you understand meaning that the filmmakers didn't even think about. I mean, but that's still cool.
Exactly. Yeah, we all perceive things in different ways.
Mhm. Yeah. And I was thinking like well, in today's day, our social media has kind of like pushed up against us. Like now we have TikTok that like like you can get on TikTok and you can be on there all day and it kind of just like tailors to your mind. Like it understand TikTok knows you so well. It like TikTok knows my personality better than like my own mother does. So but that's dangerous to be on there for too long because you're just scrolling and taking in information, but you're not really retaining anything. And also you're not even using your mind. You're not even like doing anything with your hands or anything. So I feel like video games is one step closer to reality.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, but just that last statement, video games are closer to reality. What do you mean by that?
Because you can actually input, like you're actually using your mind to do something physical. You're not just taking in information, which is important, but it's good to train your senses.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because now it's making me think of social media. I think
Yeah.
it's so funny, like people that are on social media, like almost
Mhm.
all the time, and they
Mhm.
like see everything, but
Mhm.
they don't like engage. They don't post, they don't like, they don't do any of that. But it's like, well, you're on here. Like, what are you doing?
I
You're
see.
just you're
Yeah.
taking it all in, but you're not engaging with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's
That's
actually
fair.
another thing I've thought about quite a bit is social media is its own plane of reality as well. It has
Hmm.
its own like rules and
Hmm.
own
Hmm.
like forces of decorum. Like, oh,
Hmm.
this is the way you do things versus oh,
Hmm.
this is not the way you do things.
Yeah, and there's like an etiquette and stuff around social media too.
That word, etiquette, yes. It's like there's an
Yeah.
etiquette about it. Isn't that so interesting how that's
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Like what goes in your story versus what goes on your like Instagram feed is completely different, you know? And like
burner accounts.
yeah, and the spam is crazy.
Oh my God, yeah. And it's interesting like it's interesting that it's kind of become our world now because
Hmm.
I remember right out of COVID, like when everybody was kind of going back to normal,
Hmm.
the first MSA event I ever attended,
Hmm.
they had like a field trip day or something out in Austin, like where all the
Hmm.
Texas MSAs met up and they were like
That's
clapping
nice.
hands.
Oh, that's really
And
cool.
so it was a cool fun time, yeah. But
Hmm.
I remember I was a little like it kind of caught me off guard because every other person that I was meeting was like, "Hey, what's your Instagram?"
Hmm.
It's like, well,
Hmm.
it just caught me off guard. I was like, wow, so this is the world now. Because prior to that, like prior to COVID, I remember social media was relevant. People
Oh,
used it.
yeah.
It was more
Hmm.
like, oh, what's your number? I'll text you for this group
Hmm.
project. But now all of a sudden it just shifted to what's your at,
I see.
It's like, oh,
Are you a social media person?
I try to use it as best as I can as a tool for myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's, yeah,
Are you
I guess.
naturally inclined towards social media, or is it something that you use more for socializing?
Well, I like to consider myself a social butterfly. Like I really, really, really enjoy meeting new people and getting to like know them and talk to them.
Okay.
And I think it's a great way to keep in touch with people. It's like a social pool.
Hmm.
Like I might meet you at um like I don't know, in some class or something, or at like a workplace.
Hmm.
And once my time is done there, it's done
Hmm.
there. But at least this way we can keep in touch. And if it's like a
Yeah.
strong enough relationship, it grows into something else.
Mm, I
But
see.
what
Yeah.
about you? Are you a
Um,
social media person?
Honestly, yeah, I've always been like on social medias and but I because well mainly like early on in middle school I started doing photography. So I just would watch these things that are like how to make a photography Instagram account and stuff. And that's when photography on Instagram was a big deal. Like you could get famous off of photography. And I was in middle school, so I wanted to do that. So I've been doing that ever since, but it really never got me anywhere. But it's still an enjoyable hobby that I do like every day.
Speaking of photography, you said something so
Mm,
incredible the first day I
what?
met you, which
Yeah.
was a photograph can lie. And
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, wow, what a
Yes, it
profound
can.
statement. You want to
Definitely.
dissect that?
Sure, dude. Yeah. I mean, like what's a truthful photograph? My room right now is pretty messy. If I take a photo of my room, it's an honest photo. But you could lie at the same time. Let's say that you use a zoom lens and you only focus on the prettiest part of this room. Now you're kind of lying. Like if I post that on my story or post that somewhere, it looks like I'm a really I'm a person that is really clean, stuff like that, but it doesn't have the context to it. Um, what's another example that's less like obvious? Like, hmm. I mean, you can hide things with photographs. Um, there's a lot of things you can mask. Like, you know how sometimes you could take someone's photo and they're really photogenic and they just look very beautiful. And there's other people, you just can't get a good pose of them, but they could be a really beautiful person objectively, but just the photograph just lies. So,
Yes,
you can lie through photography.
you certainly can. And another example I'm thinking of is
Mhm,
I think you actually had mentioned something similar when we were talking about it that day. Like, for
mhm,
example, if two people are talking and they're like just in the conversation,
mhm,
you can take a picture of them without them noting
mhm.
it, but in the photograph it looks like there's bad blood, but really it's just they're in the
Mhm.
conversation. It's just they're
True.
engaged, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, oh,
definitely.
they hate each other. It's like, oh no, it's just like that. That's
Uh-huh.
sometimes even on this podcast where it's like
Uh-huh.
I'll be like having a facial expression or you will when we're talking, and
Mhm.
it might seem some way to someone who's watching the video. It's
Mhm.
like, oh no, it's just we're in the moment. We're not like caring about those things.
You know why? Because freezing time is unnatural. Us humans are not like evolved to like have time be frozen. We're meant to like understand context, but photos are just devoid of context, which is kind of
Yeah.
nice artistically. Yeah,
It is nice artistically. You give it the context that you want to give it.
exactly. That's where you become the artist.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking about related to this is we really just don't know how people perceive us. You know, like
Mhm.
I might put something out there and I think, hey, this is good intentioned or this is fine. In my eyes, it's subjectively it's great, but like someone else might be like, whoa, like what? They
Mm,
might have like a totally different perception of it, and you just could never know unless
mm,
they tell you. Which is why I
yeah.
really like this one thing that Russell Brand said one time, where he's like,
Mm,
he said something like, people can only perceive you based on what you present to them, what you relay to them.
mhm,
Like, you might be an excellent photographer, but I would
mm,
never know that unless you
mm.
showed it to me.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Perception.
Yeah, perception.
I remember the what's called the example that I gave you is I was walking down the street and I took a photo of someone and um and they just looked terrible. Like they just looked so ugly, but it was a cool photo. Like the way they were moving and everything was really cool. But they looked terrible. But just in the moment it was just a normal person. So I don't know. I think that's what I just remember that photo.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's interesting. I something I've often thought about. I don't think about it too much anymore, but I used to think about it a lot was like a connection between photographs and idolatry. And
Uh-huh.
I had written a poem in one of my books one time about Napoleon.
Mhm.
And even though I wrote the poem, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but
Uh-huh.
the idea was it's quite possible Napoleon could have been even greater than he was had
Mhm.
he not focused so much on his
Yeah.
image as it was perceived to others. because he's
His
really
life.
infatuated with, you know, being someone, I
Uh,
guess, elegant or amazing to others.
hmm. I see. I think I watched a TikTok on Napoleon and like the paintings that he was in and stuff, but I really forgot everything about that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
interesting. Hmm.
Do you ever find yourself too caught up in trying to be perceived a certain way by other people?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Um, Especially with maybe like with activism too, you just gotta be careful not to be performative or not be perceived as performative and stuff like that. Um, oh, also the fact that I'm Lebanese and I don't look Lebanese, I always have to like tell people I'm Lebanese because I'm proud of it, but people don't know it off the bat. So like maybe that too. Yeah.
What do they think you are off the top of the bat?
No one really says anything until I like maybe some kind of South American. I think I look more Lebanese than anything.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess I can see it in the hair and the mustache, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, but I think I should cut my hair shorter because every time I go back to Lebanon, everyone immediately knows that I'm not from Lebanon or like I don't live in Lebanon because no one in Lebanon has big hair apparently. So yeah.
I like what you said about the performative thing. It's
Mhm,
important to not be performative in that.
mhm,
Um, that's something I think about a lot too.
mhm,
Like we're talking in the beginning about being a part of something greater than yourself. I think
mhm,
it's such a beautiful, amazing thing. But
mhm,
sometimes I'm like, man, I gotta like keep my wings down because
mhm.
I don't want to seem performative. I don't want to be performative. I want to
How
be
so? Keep your wings down.
sincere.
Hmm.
Um, just kind of like be calm, even when things are kind of
Hmm.
not calm.
I see. Yeah, and performative being oh Siri just turned on. Being performative might not be a bad thing sometimes.
Of
Like
course.
like of course we are Easterners. We're not from America, so it's harder to be performative because we're actually attached to the conflict a little bit more. But um but I think whenever this conflict becomes mainstream, like very mainstream, and it becomes cool to be on the right side of this conflict, maybe that's a good thing because uh I mean, if it's cool to like be pro-Palestine, I mean, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe even if people are just making TikTok videos to perform, it's still pushing our message,
Yeah.
you
It
know?
definitely is a good thing to be pro-Palestine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid
Hmm.
and I watched The Boy in the Striped Pajamas,
Uh-huh.
and I was actually so sad. Like I cried. It's like,
Really?
damn.
For what?
And then
What's
it
the
was
movie?
about the Holocaust. There was like this
Oh,
German kid. He
mhm,
accidentally got caught up in one of the camps and he died,
mhm.
you know?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then the other film that I watched was The Pianist. I watched that with my grandma and I was like, "Oh my God, what a
Mhm,
sad, sad film."
mhm.
And then to know that that stuff is still
Mhm.
going on in the world, it's
Yeah,
crazy. It is
definitely.
crazy.
Yeah, the stuff we read in history books is now playing out again all over again.
Yeah.
Insane. Terrible.
The patterns keep repeating, eh?
Yeah, but you wouldn't expect people to be acting this way, but people are acting terribly. Sadly,
Yeah.
learned it seems.
I have some friends, like they know what's up. They don't they don't engage, they don't have anything to say, and I just kind of look at them sometimes. I'm like, huh,
Hmm.
it's the world that we live in. Like it's so
Yeah,
surprising.
I
I remember
really
when
don't
we
know
were
how
at
to
that.
approach that. Yeah,
Sorry?
I really don't know how what to think of those people.
Yeah. I remember we were sitting at like one of those like student government meetings and you were next to me. And like I had a friend who was like who opted for like neutral or something. And you looked at me and you're like,
Oh,
who are they? And I'm like, I know that person.
no,
It's like,
you're going neutral on. Uh, I
yeah.
mean. I hope she looked into it and educated herself more afterwards. But like, I don't know. Yeah, but let's not speak on it.
Yeah. Oh man, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, but like one time, like I'm trying to like at the beginning of the conflict, I was sending people information about what's going on just randomly in my following list, and I sent it to somebody, and then they were like, "What the fuck? Just WTF? Like, like, like not WTF to the to what's going on, but WTF to like, why would you send this to me?" And I'm like, I didn't respond, but I was thinking like, dude, no way this person can't read this and be like sympathetic. They're instead just angry towards me for sending it to them. I don't know what to think of those people.
Yeah.
They're
I
sheltered, I think.
they're what?
I think they're really sheltered.
Sheltered. Yeah, that's a good word.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself being that way?
In what way?
Like like I guess sheltered is maybe the word, but like for example, the reason I started getting involved with all this stuff more recently, like the past month and a half, 2 months, is because I felt so tremendously guilty. I
Uh-huh.
felt like there was a lot going on and I wasn't a part of it, you know? I remember
Mm,
in the beginning when this all began, October,
mm.
November. I mean, of course, it's been going on since before, but I
Yeah.
remember when I was really involved, but with all the incoming news, I was just overwhelmed with negative emotion. And
Mm.
it was so much so that I could even feel it in my dreams.
Oh,
So
really?
I was like, man, I need to take a step back.
Mm.
And so I took a breather. And in
Mm.
that time, I was just observing things. And
Through
I think
what?
that was really just kind of observing like what was going on, but not like engaging, so to speak. And I
Okay.
think that was helpful for me because I was able to just kind of like notice stuff.
Mm.
And now I feel like, I'm back into it. But going
Mm.
back to what I was trying to ask you was, do you ever find yourself in places like that where like, I need to kind of take a step back. I need to not focus on that so much so that I
Mm.
can come back stronger.
Um, yes, but not specifically about Palestine. I haven't felt that for Palestine probably yet. It might happen, but I was trying to plan a solo camping trip. Well, like I've been yearning for a solo camping trip, like without my phone and stuff, so I can like actually think because I feel like I haven't been thinking. Um, um, but d due to recent events, my solo what's called um my appetite for solo adventure has been fulfilled.
What do you mean? What happened?
For what happened the other day,
Oh, okay.
like 9 hours of just sitting alone. So it really like filled that the what I was hoping a solo camping trip would fill for me, that void of not being around
Yeah.
my phone.
When you were left with your own thoughts, what did you think about?
I was mainly praying. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
It was nice. It was nice. I feel like I feel like it wasn't a negative experience being in there. Other than the fact that the chair was really, really like the worst seat ever, but yeah. It was nice.
Damn.
Mhm.
That's cool, man. That's
Mhm.
brave and admirable.
Mhm. They had me in there with a toilet though.
A
I didn't even
toilet.
yeah. So I didn't even know if I was allowed to pray or not, but I did anyways.
Damn. That's
I hope I hope it gets I hope my prayers worked out.
yeah, yeah. Damn, son, 9 hours.
Yes,
That's
sir.
something.
Yeah.
That is something.
But it would have been a whole lot longer if not for some helpful folks downstairs.
The heroes. The heroes.
Definitely. Oh, check this out. Speaking of heroes,
Oh, nice, nice.
here's cards. These are actually birthday cards, but I'm gonna write in them. something sweet for like the folks downstairs that helped, you know.
That is so cool. Well, what do you have a favorite superhero?
I don't really like superheroes.
You don't.
No. But probably
Interesting.
like Iron Man.
Probably Iron Man. Well,
Yeah.
it's cool that you got those cards. It's like, oh, that's heroic.
Yeah, I was looking for something, but everything was birthday cards. But I was like, my cousin showed me Avengers. I was like, wait, that literally like makes sense. It says Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
Mm,
Nice. Nice.
mm,
I like how you were talking about this whole thing about, just being with your thoughts and getting a chance to think because I felt that with music.
mm,
Sometimes you just listen to too many songs
mm,
and the only thing in your head are just lyrics. You're like, wait, I need to think for myself.
mm,
Take
mm.
a quiet drive or just sit down
Yeah.
quietly.
Yeah, music does fill that void like all the time, which is so like overstimulating sometimes.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Those 9 hours, did you feel like you did it sober you up?
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I knew I needed it though. So it was just nice. I really did enjoy it. I mean, obviously it's gonna be a tough few months now. That I'm gonna be fighting some stuff, but Alhamdulillah, it was a good time. I can say honestly.
That's the word, eh? Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Dude, Jad, I'm curious. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say but didn't get a chance to, or something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Um, no, what about you? Do you have any closing thoughts?
I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again because I like it. I like this thing.
Okay.
When Moses and the people they
Hmm.
come to the sea and the
Hmm.
Pharaoh's armies behind them,
Hmm.
the people they start freaking out, like, oh my God,
Hmm.
Moses, we're gonna die, man. Where's your God?
Yeah.
Like, are we done for?
Hmm.
And he turns to them and he's like, be grateful.
Hmm.
And that's kind of a surprising statement because when people are panicking and rushing and freaking out and there's this, impending doom upon them, you don't tell them, hey, just be grateful. It doesn't sound like a logical thing to say.
Yeah.
But in the Muslim tradition, the idea is if you're grateful, God increases you.
Hmm.
And it's in that
Yeah.
moment where the sea splits and they
Hmm.
pass through safely and the
Yeah.
Pharaoh's army is just submerged. So I
Dude,
guess that's my closing thought. It's just a
I had
gratitude
that moment
thing.
in there. Yeah.
You had what?
I had that moment where the ocean split like that in my experience, and it was really nice. It was obvious that something God decided at some moment that, to change things for me.
What was that moment, if you don't mind me asking?
It's confidential, can't speak on it, but it was really nice. And I was on the phone with my mom, and I cried on the phone. It was a really nice moment.
I'm
Alhamdulillah.
glad to hear that. That's
Mhm.
cool. That's
And
cool.
also throughout the experience, I mean, obviously being there is difficult because, I don't know, obvious reasons. But this is really nothing compared to what the children in Gaza are going through, the men, women, and children are in Gaza are going through. So that whole time, that understanding that, come on, this is actually a really, really, really small test you know, um, compared to the average child in Gaza.
Yeah.
So that kept
I,
me
I
going, I think.
I love how you said that. And
Mhm.
I mentioned that guilt was kind of sort of thing that has gotten me involved, but I'm realizing that more that
Mhm. Mhm.
they're the ones that are suffering more. So whatever we go through here,
Yeah,
it's not really
true.
that.
Hmm. And even if protesting is not like, I think we all understand as protesters, like that, we're not really doing that much in the grand scheme of things, but we just have to do something about it, even if it's like the smallest thing possible.
Yeah. Well, hey man, shout out to you and shout out to all the heroes out there, like do your
Avengers.
thing. It's no secret. It requires courage. It requires fortitude.
Mhm.
But to be able to do that, it's amazing.
Alhamdulillah.
I admire it. Yeah.
Thank you. Mhm.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I suppose until next time, eh, Jad?
All right.
Inshallah.
I'll see you later.
Yes,
Alhamdulillah.
sir.